Anyone can sell electronics. At Electronics Expo, they do more than sell products. They design, install, and support complete technology solutions. From home theaters and whole home audio to lighting, shades, automation, networking, security cameras, and premium entertainment systems. For over 22 years, they've helped thousands of homeowners experience technology at its very best. See the difference for yourself. Visit their Wayne or Paramus stores in New Jersey or shop now at electronicsexpo.com.
The mayor and what's going on in this city, although he did win, and I've heard Hank Sheinkopf say he's pretty good at, I guess, getting people to believe what he was selling. Of course, he's a liar. He just is a liar. And we're starting to see that, I guess. So with that said, here he is, become one of my favorite guests on this station, Hank Sheinkopf. Hank, good morning, pal. How are you?
Thank you very much for having me on today. Glad to hear your voice.
Thank you, man. I love having you on the show, too. I appreciate that, Hank. Thank you. I want to go back. We'll do this in chronological order. So we'll start with the budget. I had City Councilman Frank Morano on this show earlier. I've been having text conversations all morning long with Council Lady Vicky Palladino. I love both of them. $126 billion. And we couldn't find a way to add one cop, let alone 600 or a fifth firefighter. There's all kinds of stories about sensitivity training and was Menon responsible, yes or no? Was Jesse Tisch responsible, yes or no? But for me, it all goes back to the mayor. What are your thoughts on this budget and why the city, we got the money, why couldn't we add one cop?
Well, the reality is we don't have the money for anything. There's a $12 billion budget hole in that budget. A lot of us on the union side have been talking about this for at least 2 years. It is a serious problem. The state is going to be in very serious fiscal trouble next year. The city will be in very serious fiscal trouble right after the first of the year. And this is all nonsense. And what the mayor is going to do is blame the state, which is kind of idiotic and absurd. The whole is.
But wait, how could he blame the state? Correct me if I'm wrong, Hank. You're much smarter than I am. When Kathy Hochul gave him somewhere between a $5 and $8 billion bailout.
She gave an $8 billion bailout, but it's not sufficient to meet the problem. Why? Because he keeps adding numbers to existing programs or new programs that aren't necessary. The costs are higher than they should be. He's not cutting any place. He's not making room in there for a union contract, which he's going to have to do. He's got union contracts coming up. There's no new cops in that budget. The costs of that are going to be overwhelming to people. I don't think we understand how serious this is. And this is not a joke. You can't print money in the basement of City Hall. They tried it in 1974, 73, and the end result was 1975, which was the bankruptcy of New York City.
You know, I saw a documentary, Hank, a couple of days ago, because I'm younger, and it was about the Joe Colombo / Joey Gallo assassinations in New York City.
Right.
And Joey, of course, got murdered outside Umberto's Clam House. But in that documentary, they showed you what New York looked like in that era you're talking about, mid-1970s. Just about every retail store out of business, building after building blown out and vacant. I mean, it just looked awful. Are you telling me that's what we're going to look like here in the not-so-distant future?
I don't know if that's going to look that way, Sid. It's an important question you're raising. What we are going to have is cuts in services, and we're going to have a bailout of some kind. That's a fact of life. The mayor wants that to happen because he can blame the state, and the feds, he's going to have to go to the federal government, or the governor's going to have to impose a financial control board at some point if this continues, and they won't want to go to the feds because they got a problem with Trump, and Trump's the only one that can bail them out. They're going to have to go to the Federal Reserve probably for an instant bailout loan. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be very, very complicated. The best book to read on the fiscal crisis, there are a lot of them, is a book now by Richard Farley that's out about, 6 to 8 months, where he talks about the fiscal crisis of 75 and what the implications are. This is very, very serious stuff. And those of us who work for unions were involved with, I work for a lot of unions for cops, but city detectives, which I'm proud to say. This is a very, 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 very serious issue that no one is paying attention to in the way that they should. They're going to be very sorry.
I know the cop unions, Hank, because I'm very close with Scott Monroe. He runs the DEA. Even the retired detectives, I'm very, very close, as you know, with Vincent Balalang. He runs the sergeants union. So I know the cops unions hate him. They hate him. I'm going to say it. They won't. Maybe they will. They hate him. Yeah. But the rest of the unions around the city, I had a guy in here, I forgot his name already. People love him. He's in charge of the horse and buggies and transportation. And he was trying to sell me on Mamdani. I nearly kicked him out of the studio before Mamdani Mamdani even won. So you tell me, Hank, on the whole, how do unions feel, the majority, about this mayor?
Look, they have to come in for contract negotiations after the first year. Some of those contracts are up sooner than others. But again, if you look at the votes on the mayor's decision not to fund pensions going forward, which he did, which is very dangerous. It happened, I think, in 73. And it was one of the factors that led to the fiscal crisis and city bankruptcy in 75, from which in many ways we've not recovered. The city university doesn't belong to the city. The community colleges don't belong to the city with their own problems. The hospital system really doesn't belong to the city anymore. I mean, we had freestanding health clinics. We had free university. I mean, we had a lot of things that created the middle class. That's gone. So if you want to look to the crisis that we've created, that we have in front of us about affordability, look to 75 and bad management by politicians. I worked for a lot of other municipal units, including Local 237 Teamsters, in which I'm proud to have done that for a long time. And I can tell you, just talking to people, that they know they've got to go to contract negotiations next year, so they're not going to take them on a lot in public. But this is not a good set of circumstances.
It really isn't. Hank Sheinkopf here. And Hank, I'm reading this morning about all these vacant, stabilized apartments in the thousands, maybe as many as 7,000. And then he got his wish about freezing the rents. And I'm not a real estate person. I'm not that smart, but smarter people than me are telling me that will absolutely lead to a disaster in terms of the financial implications. So you tell me those two things, how bad are those for the city?
You can't do the kind of things he's doing in the way he's doing them and expect there to be good outcome. It doesn't work that way. There are other ways to create affordable housing rather than going into present housing supply and destroying it. You could come up with all kinds of tax incentives to help landlords upgrade properties. What you're going to have is a real disaster here, because the properties need repair, they need constant upkeep. Guess what? If you cut income, where do you think the money's going to come from to do the repairs and keep up those properties in the way that you need? It doesn't come out of the air. Insurance costs are up. Fuel costs are up. Profit margins are likely down overall, and demand is high. So what do people expect? And you can blame the great generation that thinks that somehow they've been done a dirty service, even though they haven't lived that long to do any service. The great gentrifiers for what we're experiencing to some extent. If you look at the neighborhoods that they've gentrified, including portions of Washington Heights, where Espaillat lost that election 2 weeks ago, right? You look at that area, what you see is people who've never borne a burden or paid a price, suddenly pricing everybody else out. Bushwick ditto, on. The Great Park Slope renewal of 50 to 60 years, they priced people out. The blue-collar working class that lived in neighborhoods like that is gone. So what are we talking about?
You're right, it is gone. Park Slope and Dumbo, all those fancy Brooklyn neighborhoods, they may as well call that Manhattan at this point, let's be honest. Yeah, I mean, they started like 2 million. I had Bruce Blakeman back on the show yesterday. Bruce and I are very close, we speak every day, and I believe I was either the first or second person he even told, dating back a year ago, he's going to run for governor. And all you keep hearing, and I brought this up to him, was, it's a lot of pressure, that the only way the state survives is if he wins, because the current governor, Kathy Hochul, is scared to death of Mamdani. And even though she says a lot of things now which kind of disagree with Mamdani, the consensus is if she wins, they'll be like two peas in a pod. Do you agree that Bruce Blakeman may be the only savior for the state?
Well, let's go back. Here are some of the realities. The DSA, and they're not Democrats, they're socialists, and who knows what they really are, has a simple plan, which is take over the legislature, control the reapportionment in 2028, ultimately get enough people in Congress to make sure that they can change the Constitution of the United States to make Mamdani or someone like that the president. She's not born in this country, and they can't do it unilaterally, so they've got to change the Constitution. That's the long-term plan. Destroy the economy and destroy the state of Israel and democracies throughout the world. That's the job. The question is, are they going to get to do it? New York State is ground zero. The money's here, the action's here, the media's here. So what you want to do is you want to destroy the state. Now, if you don't have somebody who's going to stop him, or going to stand up to him, or isn't afraid of being elected, or a legislature that's not afraid of being reelected, you're going to have a disaster.
That's the bottom line.
Otherwise, is fooling themselves. They're absolutely fooling themselves.
Why do you think my friend President Trump has chosen this path where he goes out of his way to compliment Mamdani? There's got to be a great plan, some chess game he's playing. I love Trump. You know I do, Hank, and I feel badly criticizing him, but I do. I'm trying to figure out, why do you think he does that?
Look, it's really simple. The city's going to have to come back to the president if this continues in the way that we suspect it will, for a bailout. Trump is in charge of this game, and what he's doing is telling this nice young fella who has no experience of doing anything except for growing up, he's telling him that, by the way, fella, I'm really in charge or not. So smile, tap dance, have a good time. You know?
I think you're right. No, I think that's probably it. Don't forget, I'm the boss. On the way out, I know you saw all the speeches on Saturday, the July 4th speeches celebrating 250. I thought Trump was great. I thought Bibi from Israel was great. But the darkest, most depressing, and most difficult speech to watch, including the 9 people around him, was Mamdani with George Washington's desk backwards, which obviously
the toughest day this kid has had was the day he was brought into the earth.
True.
His father and his mother and he lived in essentially tax-subsidized housing at Columbia where no taxes are paid, at lower rates, making a lot of money. She's famous. She tried to block Gail Gadot from appearing at the Academy Awards because she's a big player in Hollywood now. You know, what are we talking about? This kid's toughest day was the day he was born. He doesn't know what it means to put a callus on his hand. He has no idea what it means to work behind a counter until your feet bleed. He's got no idea what it means to walk a beat, protect somebody, put your life in danger for what you think is right. Who are we talking about? What are we talking about?
But then with all this
generation.
I know, but then with all this gloom and doom that you're predicting, and I agree with, and every smart person agrees with, that's why people are leaving or moving their businesses. Well, how do you stop him? You can't just chalk it up to inexperience or he's a kid. How do we stop him?
The only people that can stop this are the people that have some ability to threaten people or force them to do the right thing. And those are the municipal unions and the private sector unions. We're going to have to, if they want to see the place survive, they're going to have to stand up and say, wait a second, we're going to go to war with you and we're going to use whatever resources we have because they're expecting they can do contracts next year. He's not going to have the money. It's not there. You can't do a deal with somebody who has not a dime to spend. And that's the reality that the unions are going to have to face. They're the only ones who would stop this the same way they saved the city in 75. And I'm not talking about a bailout this time. I'm talking about standing up and saying, listen, Mayor, you bloated the budget. You're not creating jobs, and you're going to put us out of business. Simple system. You're going to put us all out of business. That's what they have to do, and ultimately maybe they will if we're lucky. If not, the business community will say, thank you, New York, have a good time, because they don't have to stay here anymore. The idea, in 75, municipal bonds mattered, right? You had smaller banks, and a lot of their, you had banks, first of all, and a lot of their income came from city municipal paper. It's not the case anymore. You know, people are deluding themselves. The entire system has changed. So I'm looking for the union guys to stand up and say, wait a second, Mayor, you can't do this. We're not going to let you in. By the way, we're going to fight you. If they do, we win. And if they don't, well, the city loses big time.
Ouch.
Big time.
Well, Hank Sheinkopf, you really are terrific. I tell you that every time, but you are. You're great. And you provide a perspective that's really smart that a lot of folks in the city don't look at. So I really appreciate when you come on. Thank you so much. Great effort today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sid. All the best.
God bless you. Hank Sheinkopf right there. That guy's great. He is. And he's probably right. The unions, that's it. It's not another politician. It's not me. You know, I like to think that I can help make this guy's life miserable. I think I've done a little bit of that, maybe even more than a little. But in the end, to really change things, I'm talking about make the city healthy. Hank Sheinkopf is right. It's got to be the unions. Got to step up and tell this guy, like Roberto Duran once said, as you remember well, Louis, no mas. You remember it? No mas.
Thanks for listening to Sid and Friends in the Morning. You can hear Sid and Friends in the Morning weekday mornings at 6. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?